There. You're starting with a hum. It should be landing in people's ears within moments of the point at which I said things. Good evening, everyone. You're hearing a very Guinness advert, not because we're in Ireland, but a very Guinness advert me tonight because I'm very ill. So if we're gonna, I'm gonna rely on. Ian's going to do all this talking. I'm going to simply not do that. No, it's going to be it's the usual. We're good. It's episode 235. We of Rail Natter. Anon Iano is joining us once more for the third and final instalment in our What About the Future episode in our Ireland's Railways series. Sorry, and it is part 3. What About the Future, which I'm very excited about. A couple of things. First things are. That if you haven't already, then the two previous parts of this episode, this series, part 1 was A Potted History, which was very popular, and part 2 was Thoughts on the Present, talking about the system as it is now, which we'll do some updates on with some news in a moment. Before we do that, it's not included in the news. I'm going to briefly do some big face and say hello. Ian's waiting in the wings. There is no news about the fatal crash at Telerthig or near Telerthig because I want to wait until the RIB have said a bit more about it before I talk about it at all, really. But it's just obviously it's really upsetting that we've had in the course of a few years now a second fatal rail collision, which is really it's pretty appalling, and obviously we want to understand what's gone wrong. The fact that we know that the immediate cause seems reasonably clear at the moment, although the details behind it will be key. But the root causes of why the conditions got to the situation where they did. We're talking about low adhesion, wheel slip, from whatever, we don't know whether it's leaf fall or whether it's just often you get a combination of rain or mist that can sit on the railhead in very unique kind of a particular set of circumstances that can become a problem. Questions about variable rate sanders, other sort of technologies that are fitted to some but not all of the 158s out on the GB network. Lots of things like that I look forward to the RIB looking into in greater detail, but I'm not going to say much more than that for now. It's not recorded as a news item because I don't really want to speculate much more on it. But let's just say the RIB have released their first statement and what they're going to be looking very closely at. But there are clearly underlying issues at play. So that's my upfront comment on that. We'll perhaps pick it up in a bit more detail next week because there's a lot of news to pick through next week, which is when the news episode. Actually, no, the week after when there's going to be a news episode. But anyway. That is what I wanted to say about that. I don't want that to happen yet. I am going to go back to getting rid of my face. And I am going to say, everyone, yeah, it's full, very, very deep. My voice is a mess tonight. So everyone, hello. In fact, I can introduce the episode in that way if you like. People are moaning about my voice already. Yes. Everyone, welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. Except that I can't do it because I didn't do the click. This bit's going to get cut out in the audio-only version, but I'll read it again for all of your benefits because I need to click in the right thing. And actually, if I do this, it tells me whether I'm in. There we go. I've got about 16 windows open, which is why I'm alt-tabbing into the wrong thing. Right, now we can make progress. Everyone, welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away, Ella is in the chat sharing the railnatterbingo.netify.app link. Is the Railnatter bingo still working? Remarkable. We start with some. So we have some Ireland specific news, and I want, before we do that though, before we talk about early enterprise, let's just bring Ian in. Ian, you've been hiding in the background. In fact, you know what I'm going to do is hold the mute button.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry about that. Ian is here and it's introducing himself while I die down, Mike.
On stage. Yeah.
The third in the series. It's exciting. I'm pleased we're here. You know, we've got we're I think it's going to be quite a nice. Well, in fact, I know it will, because already the first two make a nice pair. But yeah, it's going to be good to go through and talk about the future. It's going to be a tight ship tonight. We're going to, because otherwise I may genuinely collapse and die off this chair. So we're going to keep this to the as tight to an hour as we can, which I think we'll manage. I think we're going to manage it. So all the questions.
We'll do our best.
We'll do our best. I'm going to say one thing I will say is. Do at me in the chat so that I can spot your name, as Ella has just done. You can see my name there in red. At me if you've got a question for me or Ian, and that way we can pass them over. It's a nice, easy, quick way for me to see the questions popping up. Right, without further ado, let us return to the news, because Ian, in fact, I'm going to read the card and let you tell me what's going on. So, although this one's fairly self-explanatory, hourly enterprise.
Yes. Exactly. This picture in particular is a hint at what might be coming next. If you know, you know. So hourly enterprise. It's an idea that's been floating around for a good while now, because up until now it's something like 6 or 8 trains a day. Not very frequent. So. I think it's to be starting soon. I think I heard the 29th floating around somewhere, but that's not for definite. I'm not sure. But yeah, it'd be good. Good to have. They don't seem to need any more rolling stock to achieve that, but that is something that they will need at some stage in the future. That's it for that item, I'd say.
Yeah, nice. I mean, an hourly service, an hourly intercity service is really important. By the way, I've put Ian up a little bit just for everyone's benefit. Yeah, I've put Ian up in the chat. You'll be glad to hear. So if Ian's loud again now because I've cranked him right up, then do let me know. So an hourly service makes sense because suddenly it's usable. A railway system of the density of Ireland, there should be no service that's less than hourly, really. The rural services being every 2 hours, okay. As we discussed in the previous episode, there's any services that's less frequent than once every 2 hours essentially might as well not exist. And for a kind of the one of the key intercity connections, hourly is the minimum it should be, really. Yes. Anyway, I'm going to bump us into the next thing. So, yes, quite a bit going on at Grand Central. Tell us about some of the shenanigans at Belfast Grand Central Station when it had its opening about a month and a bit ago.
Right. So it opened to buses first. I was going to say the 7th, but it turns out here it's the 8th of September that it opened. And then between then and the 13th of October, they were doing enabling works to move the trains from Great Victoria Street into this new station. So the first one was an enterprise, fittingly, on the Sunday. So I suppose you can see it here. It's a fairly good improvement. It's a massive improvement, actually, I should say. It's a lovely interior from what I've seen. I think some of you in the chat have been there already.
Michael C. So next week, Michael C., friend and contributor, and sometime contributor to the show, will be giving us a little video about Michael C.'s walk around of Belfast Grand Central. So we look forward to that next week, which will be good.
So if you wouldn't mind circling here, you can see where the rail platforms come in, and there's this seemingly missing bit in the roof. And that wasn't initially planned. It is indeed missing. At some stage, a few months ago, on cost grounds, they decided that the train platforms would not get an overall roof. and they just do canopies down the lengths of the platforms instead.
Well, that's
There's
sad.
a bit of campaigning, a petition against it, but to no avail. I think reasons they gave were cost of construction and then cost of cleaning diesel smoke off the roof.
Well, there's an easy solution to that.
Anyway.
Oh dear. Anyway,
but like even still, like Connolly Station, Euston Station, like you need to clean the roof, but I mean it's nicer when it has a roof.
It's much nicer, and you'd have a complete building as well. Like they've chopped a quarter of the building away.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, like, looks lovely.
Yeah.
Although the one problem is, I hear there's still no city buses, metro buses stopping at it yet.
Okay, so that's one of a number of issues. The city bus is not calling at it. Number one issue. Number two issue. No cycle parking whatsoever. I'd say that maybe those are two major issues that are absolutely baffling choices.
Couple something together.
Yeah, and also there's some gauging issues as well that I've heard about, but I don't know about those in detail actually, so I'm not going to comment on them. But
I haven't really heard about them either now.
I've had several Irish journalists messaging me, or Northern Irish journalists messaging me, going, "What's this about then?" And I've gone, "I don't know. I'm afraid I'm not sure. No one's told me anything about it. I haven't got any details." But so if anyone has any details about the gauging, then do let me know. Yes. Hello, Jade H. By the way, welcome to the show. And you absolutely do get the tone of the show with your joke, which is, "I personally love getting pissed on by God while waiting on my train." Yeah, exactly. We all enjoy getting soggy. Well, to be fair, there'll be a little canopy that'll let the wind and rain. Looking at the canopy, it's a bit of a V-shaped thing, so it looks like all the rain will blow in anyway, whether you're under the canopy or not. Anyway, next, because we need to continue. I'm already delaying us enormously.
Indeed.
Timetable chaos. Oh, this looks familiar. It's familiar for us over on this side of the sea. But what's going on with the timetable?
Right. So the new timetable in I don't remember when they released it. It was late August or early September. Probably early September. It was late. So it had many good things. A new Wexford to Gorey service, either late at night or early in the morning, I don't remember. For some reason, not a direct train to Dublin. You have to get off and transfer to another train leaving Gorey at the same time. It's, however, they're trying to arrange the trains for the next morning. I'd say it's a nighttime one. I don't remember. Improvements on Waterford services. I think changes to Limerick to Galway services. Many good changes. But the problem here lies around Dublin. Dublin's network is hopelessly constrained, and basically Irish Rail were trying to push more out of it because they just need more trains to run.
Yeah, we talked about it in good detail last time, didn't we?
Yeah. They didn't have either they went for too much or they just didn't have the operational discipline to get the trains to run on time. There were loads of delays, and people were not happy. Now, most of the complaints in this article are things like, "Oh, the train is now leaving from a different platform and I missed it," or something, or there's no fast train to Bray anymore. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, those sorts of things are things. Those sorts of things are easily fixed by good communication. But the challenge of an entire timetable leaning on one highly constrained stretch of track is something that we're absolutely familiar with over here. Because basically, like, Manchester is for most of the northern end of the country. Well, Manchester is probably the main constraint that resulted in the 2018 timetable collapse for the north of England. For very similar reasons, the infrastructure just not capable of coping with that through flow. So that and then the last bit of news is some progress with Luas, which is nice. Yep,
the Transport Minister, Eamon Ryan, he's done some good work. I think I'd be fairly happy with him myself. The voting public might think otherwise. General voters do not seem too happy going by polls. So yeah, he was pushing for Luas Finglas to go ahead. So it's an extension of the Green Line from Broombridge north to Finglas. It's been planned for years and years. There's space set aside for the alignment. and delivery goal was 2042 or something ridiculous.
What?
So I know. So it's being pushed. It's being pushed forward, which is good to see. He also mentioned something about the Luas in Cork, which also had a 2042 delivery date, but we will talk about that in the Cork section.
Oh, golly, yeah. Ooh. Callum, I've spotted you're asking questions. Callum, your questions might be best answered in the previous episode, actually. So just if you're asking questions on the current system, do pop into the catch up with that episode if you haven't already. So that's the news. We must bring up our little faces because actually no, we're not going to do that yet because basically Ian and I have. It's all very last minute. Ian, bear with me in a minute because there is a relevant Irish advert in the middle of the episode. I don't do adverts very often, but there is going to be an advert which Ian and I'll watch. But so we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present, and I'm just chucking this map up again because this map we went through in the. I don't know if you wanted to say anything more on this one, but I've just popped it in. Kind of, this is what we were covering last episode, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the current map of services.
Yeah. So
although actually that's before the timetable.
Before the timetable change.
Some slight differences, but that's where the rail network lies right now.
Yeah, and it gives you an idea of the
see where that's going in future.
Yeah, and sorry, I keep cutting myself off because I'm coughing and I don't want anyone to be coughed at in their ears. And you can see where the most dense kind of part of the network is and why all the challenges are indeed centred on Dublin. So we will be about to talk about the future, but relevant to the future of rail, and this is where Ian's going to bear with me, relevant to the future of rail is our young rail professionals. And so I'm going to hand over to multiple-time guest and friend of the show, Bonnie Price, who's going to tell us something about young rail professionals in Ireland. Bonnie.
Hi, my name's Bonnie, and I'm the CEO of Young Rail Professionals. We are really excited to share, kindly Gareth's given us a little bit of space on his podcast, and we're really excited to share that we are expanding. So there's a long-term EU expansion plan, but initially our expansion just goes into the Republic of Ireland, where we're opening up a region and a regional committee there. We have a launch event in Dublin that hopefully as many of you will come to as possible on the 7th of November, and I'll be there and some of my team will be there, and we've got an Irish committee set up within the Republic, and we'd love to have more people join that committee, get involved, organise some events, things like that. I've been very passionate for a long time that young rail professionals should cover all of the UK and the Republic of Ireland, not simply just sort of focusing on England, Scotland and Wales and then just figuring out the rest. I feel that now is the right time in terms of the industry's expansion, and the amount of investment that's going into Ireland is really important in terms of the rail investment that's happening and the large projects. So we're really excited. Obviously I'd like to take a moment to invite all of you to that event on the 7th of November. It should be good fun, and whether you're just starting your career, whether you're a seasoned expert, please do come along and join us and see what we're about. We'd love to get to know you as well, and we'd love to hear about any of your your insights, your experience and things like that. And together we sort of want to try and create a supportive environment that encourages growth, innovation, collaboration for young people where they're in their sort of fledglings of their careers. Please make sure that you sign up. Being a member of Young Rail Professionals is entirely free for individuals, and we'd love to sort of keep in touch and let you know about our different events that we have that may be of use to you. So big thanks to Gareth for giving me a little slot on his podcast, much appreciated. And that launch date again is the 7th of November in Dublin. It's after work and we'd love to see you all there. There'll be a link somewhere above my head if Gareth has managed some movie magic for me.
I did.
Thanks in advance, Gareth.
Thanks, Bonnie. Sorry, Bonnie was very quiet because she recorded it about 3 hours ago. So that's YRP, 7th of November, if that was the date, and the link was there, bit.ly/YRP-Ireland. Drinks, I think, possibly there. Anyway, right, enough of that. Ian and I are now going to talk about the actual future, but if you're, so there's the YRP plug. Please do get stuck in if you're a rail person in Ireland. The future. Let's make our miniaturized faces appear in and then get cracking. You have to deal with my increasingly haggard body as I just kind of, as various parts of my internal organs start to fail. So we're going well. I have water. Ooh, let's go. Ian, Metrolink. Here we go. Okay. I'm interested. Tell me everything about this because I'm curious. Oh, also, if you need to, I've got Open Railway Map up in a tab, so I can fling us over to Open Railway Map if needed.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I've just remembered something else I was going to send you, but that might have to wait. Right. Metrolink.
You can still send me the link to the map if you want to. That's fine. But equally, yeah. I'll do some talking in a minute, and then you can send me it then.
Yeah. Metrolink, a very unoriginal name. I don't know how many across the world. Someone's probably counted. It's a metro line going from just north of Swords, which itself is a town north of Dublin, to Dublin Airport, to Dublin city centre. It's going through various stages of planning and consultation right now. They just went back for a further consultation a few weeks ago. I don't know how many we're at now. As always, there's journalists with various reasons to dislike it, opposing it. But it's looking good. Hopefully construction starts soon. I just see here the pictures of Phoenix Park, which for some reason they're going to build the platforms under the park, taking out trees in the meantime to do it, when they've got a lovely wide footpath and road right outside the park that they could just close the road for save all those trees.
Why did they do that? This happens. So, yeah, this, yeah.
I mean, couldn't possibly close the road for that long.
I know, right? I know.
Anyway. So that's good to see.
Yeah, is it so? Lots of people are saying get the rail not a metro sorter out. Is it actually a metro? Like, will it actually be fully segregated, high capacity?
Yeah, very high capacity, automated trains. Fairly short trains though. I think it was in an effort to keep costs down. Yeah, it's more metro-like than the original plan from back in the 2000s.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, good. So
they've improved it a bit there.
The only issue,
and
of course,
taken out some more expensive things like building platforms underneath the River Liffey.
Oh, crikey! Well, yeah, that would be expensive.
That would be expensive, yeah.
But equally, putting stations from bridging a river isn't necessarily that bad an idea, even if it is expensive, because it's quite a nice way of providing a pedestrian link through, an additional pedestrian link. Anyway, okay, so Metrolink, so that's one to keep close eye on. It's still moving, I guess, fairly slowly.
Now, something which was conceived after Metrolink, but will probably appear before Metrolink, is what we have next.
Okay, which is Dart Plus. Yes, this I can actually talk a little bit about Dart Plus, but I'll let you go first, and then I'll add anything that I have insight on.
Rightio. It's a Dart expansion program. So right now, as we saw in previous episodes, Dart goes from Bray or Greystones to both are Malahide. And all of the other services into Dublin are diesel and branded as commuter. And they will basically all be converted to being electric, except for the one to Portlaoise. That's more of a mainline stopping service than a commuter service. I'm waffling hopelessly here. So this means that there'll be increased frequencies. Electric trains are great, and new trains. So up until recently, they weren't planning to replace the old trains, which are from 1984 at this stage. But that's probably changing now. And I think the first ones, the first new trains have started to be shipped now. I saw
they are
Alstom post a while ago. I suppose for a rundown, the new lines electrified would be between Malahide and Drogheda up the northern line, which is the Dublin-Belfast main line as well. Then there's the lines to Maynooth and M3 Parkway. And then there's the line through the Phoenix Park Tunnel and out from Houston towards Hazel Hatch and Selbridge, which is the end of the 4-track section. Oh, that also includes 4-tracking the last bit into Houston, which was never done. And
that's like a key segregation benefit is that you get the segregation along that. You essentially get your 4-track segregation, which is frankly completely critical to unlocking the suburban capacity and also the long distance. Service segregation is a good thing. It's not always necessary everywhere in the world under every circumstance, but wherever you have anything remotely high frequency. So as soon as you have a dedicated suburban service, it needs its own pair of tracks. To have the right frequency, have proper frequencies, it desperately needs it. So yeah, the other thing,
no segregation on the northern line though, unfortunately, except for a 4th track through Clongriffin.
No, absolutely. And
before I forget, level crossing removals.
Yep.
Not on the Host branch, unfortunately, but that is a hard one to deal with. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you know something about this. And then they'll remove the ones in Sandymount. So I don't know, Lansdowne Road, Sandymount, Sydney Parade, and then the Marion Gates. Which I don't know how they'll do it. I'm interested to see how, but it'll be great for increasing capacity. Yeah,
what's interesting is the work that's also going on the line to through Greystones south as well, and what work is coming in advance of Dart Plus as its own sort of self-contained project that was definitely feeding into what it was. It's funny, as a project it was progressing whilst waiting for Dart Plus to kind of reach this point where it starts going public with what its plans are, so yeah, it's funny. The railway order application went out on July 2024. I'd been suspended from work from May, so I missed. Sadly, and had been working on this. I missed the fun of understanding how the project that I was working on was going to change and what was going to happen. Wicklow, for example, which is where I was doing all my work. So essentially enabling a turn back at Wicklow and changing the S&C there to speed it up so that you could have a terminating passenger train. At the moment, the S&C is way too stubby and horrible to terminate a passenger train at Wicklow because everyone will fall over. But it'd probably derail your train as well. But extending the S&C there and providing a turn back would alongside the required signalling would help with capacity. Essentially bi-dyeing it so it wouldn't be a proper loop, it'd be a bit of a bi-directional all options. That was in advance of Dart Plus, but it's interesting. I'll be interested to know how that is now incorporating the Dart Plus proposals. Actually, it doesn't sound like there is anything in Dart Plus for that line, so it might be that it's just essentially assuming that work is done.
There, it's the level crossings removal.
Yeah. So
people want the Dart to go to Wicklow. I think it's a bit too far for the stopping train to be going. You probably get way too long a journey time into the centre, but
it's a long journey time, yeah. But the logic is that it'd be running with the battery. I mean, I still think it is progressing. The Dart is going to arrive at Wicklow. It'll be using batteries from Greystones southwards, I think. Is that right? I think that's correct.
Okay, yeah, that might be the case. Currently, the plans for the batteries is to get from Malahide to Drogheda before the.
So that's the current Dart Plus plans, but the plan will be essentially that you'll have a charging facility at Wicklow, so the trains will sit at Wicklow, charge, and then return, and it'll be half the number that reach Greystones will continue to Wicklow. The extent to which that's public, NTA, if that wasn't public yet, it is now. But I don't think it's anything particularly. It's not hugely dramatic. It's not life shattering.
People have been asking for it for a while. I don't know how well known that is.
The plans are reasonably well advanced, but people are asking whether I like batteries. Mixture. On a Suburban, it makes all the trains worse because they now have to carry batteries around, when actually if you just electrified, they wouldn't. But as an interim, so for example, as an interim solution, fine. But I don't like putting batteries in trains, because the thing about trains is they don't need batteries. And if you don't have batteries on them, then it means that you don't need to use lithium and cobalt, and you don't have to rely on child labour, from the Dominican Republic, from the Dominican, no, not from anywhere near Dominica, from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. You can tell my brain is smush inside this chest infection. More on that next week. But anyway, so that's Star Plus. I'm delaying us so much already. Enough of me waffling. Next bit of story. So, okay, here we go. This is a map with that you've annotated with the Dart Plus proposals, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the Dart Plus proposals plus Metrolink, so you can see the blue line there.
Oh yeah, very nice. Yeah.
I should probably add the Luas FAS to that now.
Yes, actually, yeah. You can see the airport here, by the way. There they are. So there's the metro line. It's interesting, isn't it? 'Cause it's straight. So Dart will be the essentially the suburban rail. And then the metro will be the metro. But I suppose the next thing to do would be to integrate those, to consider how you would integrate those, whether physically or otherwise. But certainly, if you're starting to reach a point where you've got rid of all the level crossings and you're running Dart on its own pair of tracks everywhere, then at that point, you can kind of call it a metro, like if it's running on its own tracks for the most part. So yeah, how they integrate those in branding will be very important.
It won't ever run on its own tracks, I'd say, from Grand Canal
this direction
south.
Yeah.
There's just not enough intercity services on the on that line to warrant more than a few passing points, I'd say.
Yeah. But certainly,
you never know. Maybe sometime in the future. So we move on to the city centre view of this map here.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, this is very useful.
You can see this is the route the metro takes in.
Yeah.
New interchange with the Dart Plus, where the two western lines, well, the western line and the southwestern line, as they're called, where they cross.
Oh yeah.
That'll be a good interchange.
Yeah.
But there's a bit of a problem here in the centre. So I suppose if you imagine for a minute, you don't live in Dublin and you travel to Dublin.
Yes.
Whether it's regularly or just for shopping on a weekend or something. From most of the west of Ireland, Ballina round to Waterford, you will be arriving at Euston Station. So you'll have a couple of options, or a couple of places you might want to go. Either you're going to the airport, you need to get on the Dart line, like the current Dart line, or you need to get on the Luas Green line to go somewhere there, or obviously on the red line. Or you want to go straight to the city centre. All of those routes, the shortest way to all of those is onto the Luas red line, which is already crammed.
Yeah.
I don't know, have they not seen this? Are they hoping this northern interchange, Dart Plus and Metro, Glasnevin Junction, if you're wondering, are they hoping that manages it? I don't know. They need to progress the Dart interconnector to get a Dart tunnel through the centre, relieve the red line.
I was going to say, absolutely, they need trams are not metros. Trams are a bus replacement. They essentially provide a better than a bus solution, and they're designed to provide an interconnector to metros, suburban rail, which then facilitate the higher capacity. On a dense city centre core, you need more than trams. Like, you need a higher capacity than trams, particularly if there are gaps between other major interchanges. For example, regional rail or suburban rail. If there is a gap and the only thing connecting them is tram, it's not good enough. You need something of higher capacity. I'm looking at you again, Manchester. Victoria Piccadilly is a good example of a useless, of a real problem. The tram is hopeless for that link. Also, there aren't that many direct trams that do that anyway. So yeah, it's a serious challenge. The picture isn't complete. It's good that there is discussion about a very slow progress, but
I see a question here in the chat about why do they not build a tunnel?
Well, yeah, quite.
Good question.
So the good question answer is. So there's some. There are a few thoughts and discussions about navigability of waterways and such, but no, there needs to be. There's no good reason not to be building a tunnel. We have the technology to build a tunnel under pretty much any circumstance. Crack on, folks. So next, let's hop on. It's 2038 already. My God, we're going to do this though. Send your questions now at me if you've got questions, but also we can store up questions to the end if you want to save them up. So we have to talk about the. I'm going to really get close to the mic here. We have to talk about the Cork metropolitan area transport strategy. Let's go.
Okay. transport strategy with way too many road and motorway building projects, but way more rail projects than Cork has probably seen in years.
Yeah.
The Luas, which I've spoken about, I think, the transport strategies for 2042, I think that's when they aim to have the Luas done by. It's ridiculous. Cork has such a lack of, I hesitate to call it tram rapid transit, but it's such a lack of rapid transit. What we see here is all that is actually happening, which is the suburban rail improvement. So a couple of new stations, new ones north out of Kent Station, and a couple out on the existing commuter lines to Cove and Middleton, and a new platform at Cork Kent as well. I haven't been there in a while, so I don't know how it's progressing, but they had started work on it a while ago. So that, I think they said, yes, 10-minute frequencies on each branch, and then 5-minute frequencies into Cork Kent, and then 10 minutes again north of there to Mallow. So that'll start through running, I'd say, which doesn't happen now normally. You don't maybe at all. You don't get through running between Mallow to the north and Cove and Middleton to the east.
Doesn't serve south of the Lee. Sad face, yeah.
No, there's no railways there, and there's no new lines proposed. The Luas, they're not calling it Luas actually. Are they? I don't know. We'll call it the Luas. It uses an old section of railway, but only the bit closest to the city centre, which would inhibit. No. It would block the reopening of some sort of rail line using the currently free corridor in through the city to suburbs and towns. So south.
Yeah. So I was going to say there is a gap south of the Lee that needs filling, and I suppose if there is no easy wide not heavy rail, but suburban rail corridor, then I suppose an on-street tram solution is the option. Then yeah.
No, they're using the former heavy rail corridor for trams. That may be good, but it does restrict how far you can use that corridor, because it went quite a way to Passage and Carrigaline and out that way.
Lachlan's saying Cluas. I'm up for Cluas. That's good. Nice. We'll take that.
You should see the Galway proposals, which I think were very light rail. I don't know what's become of those. That's more campaigning than.
It's funny that so many people started relying on talking about very light rail as if it was. See past Rail Metro episodes, everyone, on VLR we've done. VLR basically relied on government saying yes to the Coventry VLR solution, which government said no to, because of course government are always happy to spend even tens of millions of pounds on testing nonsense to keep people entertained and feeling like something real is going to happen. But as soon as you go, can we actually now build it in the city and it'll be hundreds of millions, government obviously then goes, oh no, absolutely not, no. That's UK government. And it's funny how many different projects that were looking at the VLR in Coventry and thinking, yes, that can be a viable solution, have now gone, well, we were relying on that technology maturing, and it's not going to, which is good because it's rubbish technology. It's not bringing anything. You just build normal trams. But it's funny what the ripple effect of stupidity that the UK government has a knock-on effect on adjacent countries. Sorry, Ireland. Anyway.
Sorry, the reason I bring it up is they were calling Luas, which is movement in Irish.
Oh, Luas is going nowhere. That's it.
What version of the verb it is, what tense and stuff. Anyway.
Lachlan Gallagher is saying, I don't know why I'm slipping over everything. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm doing a dreadful job tonight. Lachlan Gallagher is saying Luas is going nowhere, and yes, and the tram is single track in places, which is particularly not good. Anyway, anyway, right.
Anyhow,
we let's be
what
positive.
We actually came to discuss.
Yeah. So, the All Ireland Strategic Rail Review. We have done an episode on this previously where I kind of flicked through, but I'm very glad that we will be having you join us to talk about it a bit more. So here's some extracts from the document. Actually, have we done an episode on the Oil Island Strategic Rail Review itself, or did I just do one on the? I think I just put the map up, didn't I? And I haven't actually gone flick through the final presentation. I think I did. Yeah. Tonight isn't the night for me to remember because my brain is. It's a good job I'm not also recording a W2IP in an hour. So.
If you want to open up the document itself, I suppose.
No, we'll feel free to go discuss, but we'll put the map up. So, firstly, before I put the map up, here, this is the All Ireland Strategic Rail Review. It might be that we do a page turn of it at some point. We're not going to do that tonight. We're going to just focus on the kind of the core of the proposals. Like some good things and some gaps, I think.
Yeah.
And I think, Ian, I'll let you talk about those. So I'm going to bring up as you put it up, I'll bring up the diagram and feel free to go through and talk through what it proposes and what it does not propose and your thoughts on this.
Right. Suppose I'll start with what I'm happiest to see, which is electrification and 200 kilometre per hour services, and the segregation of those from slower services. So the electrified corridors are in red on this diagram. So here you can see it's connecting the major cities basically. They'll also be the corridors which, not the whole thing I'd say, but any new sections will be built to a higher speed standard. Okay, so those are Dublin to Waterford, Dublin to Cork, Dublin to Limerick, Limerick to Cork, and Dublin to Galway. Notably nothing from Waterford to Galway, or Waterford to Limerick, Limerick, Galway, not electrified. And then going up to the north, Dublin to Derry, Dublin to Belfast, Belfast to Derry, and that's reopening the old Derry Road line. And electrifying it.
Yeah, I was very pleased to see this because that is.
They'll probably be using new alignment in a lot of it.
Yeah, which is a good thing. It's funny. We'll come to it. Just in case. In fact, I'm going to say it now because I will forget. But there's a lot of skepticism about everything north of the silly dotted line, because obviously that falls to the UK to decide to do anything, and the UK hates doing things.
I have heard more, I suppose, campaigners, activists pushing for it than in the to the south of the border. People definitely bring it up.
Absolutely.
Well, I think at the moment there's other focuses.
Yeah, but of course there shouldn't be because yes, there should be, but doing something like investing in a major new intercity rail connection in the north would actually make the UK government look like it gives a shit about anyone in Northern Ireland, which would, and they can then faff with the border nonsense that we've inflicted on Northern Ireland, and Ireland, alongside it. But having a railway construction project would be a very good idea, as a thing to sort of, say, okay, yeah, there's going to be this friction that we've pointlessly created in all sorts of ways. Or hopefully there bloody won't be, because otherwise it'll bin the GFA. But we're going to ensure that we are improving trade links by having additional freight capacity, or by additional railway lines being built connecting to from Derry down towards Dublin, and providing this additional capacity. They could be riding on that. Anyway, I've said my piece. I was going to say it at the end, but I'll forget. I'd forget, so I'll say it now. But I am sceptical of what happens north of the dashed line. But it is good. Like the what the report says mostly is pretty. We'll get to the gaps, I'm sure, shortly. But particularly the new line, essentially, let's call it that, the new line up to Derry from the border is really good.
So Cork Suburban electrification as well, actually. I don't know, is the review proposing that, or are they saying that it's already an aspiration, as is the line to Navan. They're not proposing using the currently freight-only branch from Drogheda to Navan. That would be an easy win in the short term to just. I suppose when we get the new Dark Plus carriages, one of the old diesels can be given to that line, operate as a shuttle.
Yeah.
Fairly easily link Navan in. But anyway, new lines / reopened lines recommended by the review. Set your sights over to Galway, I suppose, on the west. This new dark blue line going through Tuam. So that was a fairly recent closure. So that will be reusing the same alignment because it's all still there. Then down in the southeast, the Waterford to in between Wexford and Rosslare line, South Wexford line, to be reopened as well. That still has track. I think the main issue now is just the bridge over the River Barrow. So that's fairly close to reopening, I'd say. And then over here in Limerick, an actual suburban rail system.
Yeah.
Which the railways in Limerick, despite it being a terminal station, they're set up fairly well they're fairly radial from the city.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good.
And there's a nice loop through some of the city on the Limerick to Galway line. So the two lines proposed there are to, the one to Foynesport, which is currently being opened as a freight-only line. First vehicle, probably infrastructure maintenance vehicle of some sort, went over it a few days ago. And then the branch to Shannon Airport, which I suppose we'll get back to airports. This line here, Mullingar to Athlone, used to be the main line from Dublin to Galway. Used to be double tracked. They closed it in favour of the single track one, which goes to Houston. I may have mentioned that before. And then last of all, the Republic, Mullingar, just north of Mullingar, through Cavan, Monaghan, Armagh, into Belfast, which really serves a section of the country really lacking in rail right now.
Properly forgotten bit of the country, absolutely.
Both countries, really. There's this wedge, between the current Belfast to Derry line and the Dublin to Sligo line. There's just nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's what is it? We talked about it in the history episode, but you can just talk. It's just this. There's just nothing. That is just totally abandoned, empty. So yeah, much work needed there. Sorry, Jade. I am John Maddening as best I can. I know I'm being slow on the John Maddening. I'll do better John Maddening as we go. So yeah, we can go. So you can see the dark lines are the new proposed ones. So very quickly, the major additions. Additional suburban line, new suburban line, Belfast. The line from Portadown up to Derry, through Armagh. The new line running down from Portadown to Mullingar. Here, you've got all the stuff going on in Dublin, which we won't dwell on. You've got the new connections.
Letterkenny to Derry again. Letterkenny is a very big town, growing rapidly.
Yes, sorry, that's a good point. Yeah, the connection up to Letterkenny from Derry.
The Knockmore line, Lisburn to Antrim.
Yes, Lisburn, Antrim.
Stopping at the
which is
airport.
Very good. Yes, a very useful radial connection, connection there. We talked about the lines into suburban lines in Limerick, very good. We talked about Athenry to Claremorris through Tuam here, which is a very useful connection, at least for freight, actually. Actually, I need to go back through my old Galway to Mayo Rail Link Atlantic Rail Corridor stuff that I inputted into. So Dr. John Bradley I inputted it. I think that was a more... I can't exactly remember what that corridor was anyway. And then other links at Limerick Junction, which is just a chord at Limerick Junction, and then Wexford Waterford. So I'm going to sneeze.
Airports, I suppose. Dublin Airport in this gets a heavy rail link. It should be on the Dublin to Belfast main line. on their little diagram here, it's marked as not being. I can see why they've done that. It's probably quite hard to route a line through without doing loads of weaving, turning to get to the airport, and then heading back north again. Unless you were to do a new tunnel under the city from Connolly Station straight to the airport, rather than following the existing alignment, which is, I think, what they're proposing. But it's very unclear. They're not proposing exact alignments here, basically.
Yeah, this is all.
They haven't done studies.
Yeah, exactly. This is, and rightly so. You know, they talk about the strategic aim and the key nodes that need to be connected. The material, how do you connect those points, should come afterwards. Not often the first thing people do is start tracing former railways and deciding that's where the railways need to be built. It's like no. Pick your nodes, join them with a dotted straight line, and then from that point you then work out what that infrastructure looks like is way down the line of things you need to work out. And the good thing about doing it that way is that you don't get people going, oh, it'll be very difficult to connect those nodes. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. The point is the nodes need to be connected. Lots of good stuff there. Let's just say flatly, it's really positive that there is clearly an aspiration to do a lot of stuff, right? We'll talk in a minute about the frustrations, I'm sure. In fact, you'll share your frustrations in a minute. But it is worth absolutely saying that this is aspirational to the point where a lot of people are going, oh, well, maybe it won't happen, or oh, it'll be difficult for us to fund this. It's like, well, screw you to those people. This is a good plan, and it should be certainly don't shred. Decide maybe you're going to delay delivering bits of it because you're a coward, fine. But don't actually cancel it. Like, learn from the UK and learn that we do everything badly and cancel things. Don't cancel, at least to just say, no, this is still the plan, but for stupid, cowardly reasons, we're going to be a bit slower to deliver it. And then at least you're being honest with people. I suppose, go on.
To move on slightly to not so good things.
Quite.
Dublin Airport, anyway, connected is good. Shannon Airport, as I've said, connected. Farranfore Airport in Kerry, I don't think it should exist, but it's near the railway line already, so that's already connected.
So gaps. I'm going to John Madden the gaps. So Shannon Airport, this is a gap. That's gap number 1. Gap number 2. Sorry, say the gap number 2 again.
Well, So.
Oh, you're just saying that the Shannon connection is. Shannon. Yeah, that's a gap.
Yeah. Farranfore already connected. Cork Airport missed out.
Yeah.
I think this comes from, I suppose, another major problem with the review is that it's ignoring suburban networks, really.
Yeah.
There's a lot of very large towns around Cork and around Dublin and around Belfast too, that aren't connected on the rail network, and they were just left off this review because they weren't focusing on suburban networks.
Well, now, were there terms of reference set so that they were looking at a strategic level with the intention that more local stuff would be devolved? Was it a deliberate move? Because in theory, I can agree with that if they said, suburban networks will be determined by the relevant city authorities.
No, they wouldn't have mentioned anything like that. Just that it would not be included in this review. The intention might have been to leave it to the metropolitan area transport strategies, like the Cork one we saw. There's a Limerick one. There's a Dublin one, although it might have had a different name. They're not as ambitious though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I suppose Belfast International Airport, very important to connect. They've marked Belfast City Airport as being connected. I would say it's not, because Sydenham is the closest station, and to get to the airport you have to. There's no step-free access. You have to go over the footbridge, over the tracks possibly, depending on which side you're coming from. Also footbridge over the dual carriageway, and then a nice long walk all the way to the front of the airport. So I'd say they need a new station closer to the airport, which the line passes by. There's currently a long gap between Sydenham and might be Hollywood, and I don't remember. Could put a station there. That's a missing point. Again, another airport the rail line goes past is the Derry one,
Yeah.
Maybe that's not worth keeping. Maybe that's why they haven't put it there. But what they have said is 80% of the air passengers will be able to get a train to the airport.
I was going to say that's an airport that we can sort of say, but you know what? No, it's fine. We don't need to connect it because the airport should just close.
Knock airport there.
Yeah. Close the airport. Yeah.
I suppose then missing connections railway wise. Loads of reviews went in public. Suggestions went in the public consultation and requests to include Enniskillen on the map, which is in this zone between Sligo, Omagh, Cavan here. Kind of in the middle of this empty space.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about. I was trying to think where it's about. It's roughly here.
Yeah.
Ish. I'm sorry, everyone in Ireland and Northern Ireland.
But they didn't. They noted in the report, if we ever do a page turn, we'll see it, that they got a lot of requests for it, but they decided it would be too hard, and they were talking about cost benefit really, which I did not like to see. I was
going to say, as soon as you start talking about cost benefits in a strategic report, I start getting grumpy because I don't care about the cost benefit. I care about the strategic need. And a strategic need doesn't care for cost benefit either. At this point, at the stage that this was being defined, it didn't. I agreed. Messy. You will definitely do, whether it's part 4 or whether we do it as a separate standalone thing. Well, it will be anyway. I'd love to have you on for the page turn. We do that. We will do a page turn of the report in more detail. So yeah, so a definite gap there. Go on. What's our next? So that's our next gap that we see. I say that's probably one of the bigger ones.
I suppose Sligo to Claremorris. That new line going from Galway out through Tuam, that again continues on with an alignment that's still all there up to Collooney Junction and then into Sligo. Irish Rail might open that anyway. I think they're clearing it with the other one at the moment.
Okay, yeah.
But again, it was something I don't see why they left it off. Like, yeah, there's no big population centres there, but regionally, I'd say a lot of people commute from Sligo to Galway. Or even travel there occasionally, or university students maybe in Galway. Loads of reasons why you might.
And the point is, the reason why you connect up some of these links so you don't rely on it entirely on a hub and spoke national network is that you create opportunities for travel. It's not, you don't measure the need for a bridge by how many people swim across the river. The reality is you're creating opportunities, and some of these obvious. If you got rid of the geographical elements behind and drew this network, some of the obvious things you would see would be, why are there so many branches that you have to travel for hours before, and then basically come back along a route that's not that far away, paralleling it to get where you need to go, that otherwise could be like a 20-minute train journey.
It will be marginally better than current routes like Sligo and Ballina currently. The only connection would be through Dublin. Same with Rosslare and Waterford.
Exactly. So that's a major major benefits there. So 5 is that it's not that it's missing. It's just that it is happening and they're not really representing it on here. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I don't know will it happen.
But are you keen? Are they? Yeah. Okay.
Line,
yeah. So
they probably do it.
So there's a kind of a question mark on that one. Okay, right. So that those two seem like major strategic. I mean, it's an obvious and major strategic connection.
Then any services out of the south of Cork as well. Fairly large towns, Bandon, Sale, Skibbereen. No plan for those. Probably worth it again, I'd say. And another thing I disagree with is the way they've gone for Waterford to Cork services. It'll work, but they probably need a more direct line. And also to link in Dungarvan, which is a fairly large town. The reason they might be hesitant about that is the line was converted to a greenway from Waterford to Dungarvan. Although that's the same for Mullingar to Athlone, and it is in this plan as a suggestion.
Yeah.
Then another routing they decided on is the Dublin to Rosslare line. Always so much trouble with this one. It's currently got low frequency, very bad. So what they're saying is the intercity service to Wexford would go down the Waterford line and then into Waterford Station and then across the South Wexford line and then into a new station at the south side of Wexford, to avoid going off the onto the tramway through the streets. They say it'll be faster. It probably will be, than the current setup. But that's all to avoid major investment on the line up towards Bray, and also to avoid any investment on the current Dart line to add passing points or to improve capacity for the intercity services, which I think in this plan they are saying on that line cut them back to Bray. Which I don't think is a good idea.
No.
Like you're adding loads of time to the journey as you have to get onto a Dart, and like surely that Dart becomes packed then as a full train. Loads of people get off and onto a Dart. Anyway,
so Dublin to Rosslare, basically that corridor you think is a gap, and it should have been seeing the dual track upgrade to just improve capacity, because a lot of it's single track, and obviously single track railways just have hopeless capacity. Like you cannot have a mixed traffic railway that's a single track railway and it have any sort of useful capacity.
Not even that low density along that line. There's a good few towns.
Oh yeah, it's busy. It's and also like lots of it's along the coast. There's like a lot of popular spots.
It was like a low traffic line, and maybe they're still stuck in Irish Rail. Maybe still stuck in that mindset.
Yeah, I could believe that.
6 trains a day.
But it serves a lot of population density, and it really ought to be upgraded to a double track railway, electrified.
So making people go the long way around or change onto a Dart just doesn't seem like the right strategy to me.
No, agreed. Sorry, there are some people chucking me suggestions. Detour is saying a big missing link, not that far in terms of distance, is Cork Port in Ringaskiddy. Using that to help justify bringing heavy rail south of the Lee. That's a good idea. Most of these towns being discussed have populations less than 15,000 people. Justifications are in network resilience. Thanks, Detour. Very, very useful. Gareth asking about greenways. Just a cycleway, like a footpath, cycle path thing. That's what when you say greenway, that's what you mean, isn't it? Yeah.
It is indeed.
Lachlan saying Rosslare is unfixable. There are 100 good projects before trying to fix it. Oh, as in to get to Rosslare. Oh, interesting. So that's Lachlan's view. Anyway,
you need a lot of work on that line, really.
The thing is, so from what I've seen of that line, and I've been looking at the line certainly I was looking at the Wexford to Wicklow, actually Wexford to Greystone section. You could absolutely double track quite a lot of it. Like, okay, so there's a new bridge needed here, there's a new bridge needed there, but yeah, fine. But there were not that many blockers to double tracking it. You need to do new structures here and there, new culverts, new underbridges. But it's like, yeah, that's fine. There wasn't that much in terms of actual buildings and property demolition that you'd have to do. It was just lots of civil engineering work. But yeah, that's fine. I'd be up for that. Whether you prioritise it over other things, fine. Anyway, right. So yeah, continue, Ian. What else do you think is the problem?
Keane is saying here that that Irish Rail have a plan already for the branch to the airport, mainline rail branch, splitting from Clongriffin, which would be the sensible place to split from. There's the most open land still, and that's probably also where the 4-track Dart intercity line would then split, Dart going to Drogheda, and the intercity in this proposal splitting off and following the M1 to the north.
So that's
straighter alignment, much easier than trying to 4-track through towns.
I'm confusing my John Maddening, but yeah, there are the two thick red lines which represent new dual-track electrified railways.
Yeah.
One up to the airport, and the other one, as you say, going from Clongriffin up to Drogheda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, going back to dueling lines, from Kildare to Kilkenny on the Waterford branch, they're saying that needs to be duelled in their right, I'd say. Oh, sorry, now I've been coughing.
I've given you it.
At you now.
I'm sorry.
Kilkenny to Waterford, they don't have it down for dualling, which I think is a missed opportunity because that line was built initially with provision for double track way back when it was first built, including the viaduct over the River Nore in Thomastown. So it's an easy win to just double track all the way to Waterford. But anyway,
particularly if you're relying on it as the main intercity corridor to Rosslare, that's you need double track. You can't call a railway an intercity railway if it's single track. It's just daft, and that goes for sections of that goes for the Highland Main Line in Scotland as well. It's just daft that it's not been doubled yet. It's just absolutely doolally.
Not to mention all of these diesel. They say other decarbonised railways, they might be hoping for hydrogen. I don't know, but all of these diesel lines they've left not electrified.
Yeah, this is the
electrified really.
This is the a wizard will fix it decarbonisation that they're referring to here, of course. But battery can only get you so far, particularly on lines that are so slow. If the lines were quicker, then if they upgraded the infrastructure, then battery might be more viable. But the reality is that it isn't really on much distance. Bearing in mind that it was a bit of a push to get the trains running into. It worked all right on battery, but running them into Wicklow. Bearing in mind what distance we've got there, that's Greystones to Wicklow on battery, and that's a very short distance. You compare that to the rest. I'm John Maddening ever so slightly here. You compare that to all the other distances here that are non-electrified. Yeah. And you know what? If you're just going to run diesels a bit longer, fine. Modal shift is more important. But be honest about it, and just say, you know what? Actually, maybe we should be electrifying some more of these. So we've got a list of 9. Well, actually, technically 8, because number 5 doesn't really count, but we're going to put it on there anyway. We've got a list of 9 things so far. Is there anything else that you think we need to be adding to that list, or have we got 9 different bits there that we've decided that need to be resolved on the map that haven't been by the strategic review?
Well, I'll just mention that I suppose I've completely forgotten what they mentioned here. I mentioned the Dart Tunnel earlier.
Yes.
Houston to Connolly. Or the previous plan was just north of Connolly. Skip out Connolly for Pierce Station instead, which I disagree with. Other people think it's grand though. Maybe people more experienced than me. But I just think with Connolly being such an intercity hub, it should probably get the underground station, even if it's more technically challenging to build.
Absolutely, yeah. 100% agree with that.
So what they mention in this is not for definite, but it should be considered at the time. Does that line need to be 4-track and have some of the intercity services, Cork to the airport, Cork to Belfast, go through that? Which is interesting. I don't know how much benefit you get from that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. That is interesting. We will go through. We'll go through that. We'll do a proper page turn. We'll go through it, and you and I could. It'd be fun to do a page turn with. I haven't done a page turn with a friend for quite a while, so it'd be good to do that. People are shouting at me in Portuguese about me slagging off single track lines. Yeah, no, Mr. Guy Snails. Yeah, you get your Portuguese masters to upgrade their lines. Although don't complain too much. You're getting a brand new intercity high speed rail network. So come on now.
I'd say Portugal has way more double track than Ireland right now. Quite similar. Railway networks, really, from what I've seen.
Yeah, actually.
But I'd say Portugal is probably doing better.
They are also, as I'll reiterate, building a segregated, dedicated high-speed railway network. So, like 2 lines being built currently in Portugal for high speed, which is
here they've said that there'd be diminishing returns in going for full 300 kilometre per hour high speed, which I understand, and you wouldn't. They're only building new lines to bypass other sections.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't necessarily disagree
Yeah, but neither would I. They sort of waved it away though too easily, and they just said, just do 200 kilometers per hour.
I think the issue is that if they did build all this, I mean, firstly, the aspiration, the number 10 on my list, by the way, of issues with this is time. Is that the time aspiration here is really limited? Like we are in a race against time, and there should be the grand strategy should be paired with a grand political commitment to do this all by a certain date, and to race to set the mission and really challenge government to crack on with it. Because you know what, if you set the challenges, we have to do this by a certain date, and to a reasonable extent, to the point of not wasting money. Money is no object, time is the key pressure. That'll get you the railway built, and you'll make the opportunity cost savings, as in you will have a better economy more rapidly, and it'll pay for any extra cost in delivering the stuff fast. So that way you don't waste 3 years doing cost savings. You crack on and build a railway that perhaps is more expensive than it might be if you spend another 2 years designing it. But you get the railway quicker, and therefore you get the economic benefit quicker, which will far outweigh any costs from it costing a bit more, which is a thing, again, that the UK cannot learn. We cannot learn this. So yeah, I would say setting a deadline, setting a date for all this to happen by, for example, 2040. It is possible to have all this open by 2040. It absolutely is.
Goals for 2040 are Dart Plus, Metrolink, and 3 Luas lines, I think.
Yeah, which would be good, but also all of this could be done by 2040. All of what we see in here, all the thick new stuff, all the dark lines, that are the new lines, could all be done by 2040. All of them could be done by 2040. And that should be that should be an aspiration, and it's frustrating that it isn't. Right. Anything else, while we're looking at this, go on, Ian. Anything else you want to
add? No, we can take questions first, if you want.
Oh yes.
But basically, next is how do we make sure this gets delivered?
Yeah. So yeah, very good point. So two things I want to say. First thing is on the high speed point. Where high speed starts making a lot more sense is if you connect Gareth in Anglesey, not me Gareth, but Gareth in Anglesey, in North Wales, on the Irish mail route, and build the rail tunnel across to Dublin. At that point then, a joint UK and Irish high speed rail connection, direct connection from Dublin to Belfast starts making a bit more sense. Having a dedicated connection.
The percentage of people in Ireland who would think that might be even mildly feasible would probably be less than a rounding error.
Absolutely.
Nothing at all.
Oh, yeah. Bearing in mind, but so this came off the back of a very old episode where Boris was speaking about connecting.
Good episode.
And
I found myself agreeing with the route choice very quickly.
So the right route choice is to go straight to Dublin. Of course, it screws over everyone who says that we want to create we want the UK to get stronger. But
even apart from population centres, you've got 2 islands, and you should probably put the link between them halfway up the coast of both of them.
Correct. Yes, it makes obvious logical sense to link the 2 islands with what's the best, the quickest way, the connection between the 2 centroids of those islands. So I actually do think, bearing in mind, as we said in that previous episode, it's not such a crazy idea, because it's the busiest European air route between Ireland and London. It merits a physical connection, and if that happened at that point, you then start asking 2 questions. Firstly, then in order to get the journey time from your population centres like Limerick as well, but also certainly Belfast, you can understand the direct Belfast to UK connection via Dublin. That's where there'd be some merit in a dedicated high-speed connection. Other question that starts then getting raised, which has been raised by others on here, Lewis and others, is about standard gauge versus Irish gauge. Now, what's my view on this? Long term, it would make sense to standardise the network. But we have gauge-changing trains. We have technologies that mean that it shouldn't be something we should be worrying about anytime soon. it would absolutely. The challenge is, I think the main challenge is that you don't get much bigger market if you fix the track gauge to standard gauge on the island of Ireland. You still have most of the loading gauge constraints, so you don't get to just start running off the shelf European stock. So all you do is widen the pool to the UK and Ireland, which, don't get me wrong, would be a useful widening of the pool of specialist rolling stock, but not enough that it makes huge strategic sense for Ireland to plan that at any point. So my view is, at some point, yes, because I think standardization is a good thing, just as I think the Baltics should all be standardized, just as I think Ukraine will be, just as XYZ, and Spain, by the way. But particularly in a country like Ireland that has most of the same loading gauge constraints as the UK does, as we talked about in the first episode of this sub-series, not necessarily quite to the same limitation, but certainly a lot of the same loading gauge limitations. It doesn't mean there's a huge amount. You're not going to be able to buy off the shelf mainline, the mainland European rolling stock. So there isn't a huge value in it. So
I'd say best you could do is some dual gauge maybe on the specific routes you want to have international trains.
Exactly, and that goes for strategic freight as well. There potentially would be value in having a dual gauge, but of
course strategically as well. That cause you need to think about the North Wales main line, and you need to think about HS1, HS2 connection.
Exactly, whatever you're doing and the North Wales main line is a bit of a tricky one because it's a very fiddly railway line, very densely used, and aspirations for it to become a glorified metro line, a very fairly densely used metro route with not a huge amount of with challenges on. Actually, it becomes a bit like it becomes very similar to a lot of the main intercity routes on the island of Ireland, in that it's quite densely suburbanized and has a lot of long distance stuff and carries a bit of freight. So there are challenges, yeah, for sure. Lachlan Gallagher is saying our gauge is better. Correct. Why don't you guys change? Well, the fact that something's better doesn't make it the right solution. This is absolutely the case with Irish gauges. That the 1600mm is a better track gauge, but is it better? It's not the standard one, and therefore you go with the standard one, unfortunately. And that is the right thing to do. Anyway, right. So let's talk about how we make all this stick. And you've put up a list. I'm going to audio describe a bit better than I have been. You've put up a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Twitter accounts or groups that people can jump in and provide support of. So go through all these in. Tell me about these.
Right. On the top left here, we have the commuter coalitions. I believe we have some members of those in the chat.
Hello, chat.
So, well, they are as they sound. They're groups of people who commute in or into the major cities in the country. So currently, there's groups in Dublin, Cork, and Galway. So they're campaigning for active travel, public transport, that sort of stuff. So I think there's general election manifesto coming out for the Dublin commuters, and Cork commuter coalition one in the works at the moment for, I suppose, what to look for in candidates in the general election, which will be soon, I'd say. We're due one. Then nothing in Waterford or Limerick, unfortunately, which they could really do with. There's been some developments in Waterford and Limerick recently that could do with some campaigning for, really, but they don't seem to have the same sort of I don't know. I don't know what's behind it, but like Limerick would be bigger than Galway, and Waterford not too much smaller than Galway, so it's surprising that there's no group. I'd like to see one set up, I suppose. And then, right, next groups. These ones, West on Track, they're campaigning for the reopening of the Western Rail Corridor, which I've talked about. Athenry, Tuam, Claremorris, Sligo. And then Southeast on track, so they campaign mostly around the reopening of the South Wexford line and then the Dublin Rosslare line to basically improve services there, because they're not really the best. And then we have the North Tipperary Community Rail Partnership here.
I'm John Madley.
Give all these people a follow.
Yeah,
they're focusing on the line out of Limerick, kind of just to the north of the Dublin-Cork main line. Towns like Roscrea and Nina. That has probably 2 or 3 trains per day per direction, so you can understand why there's campaigning for more on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
They probably also mentioned bits about the other rail line through Tipperary that gets 2 trains per day.
It is indeed a long way to Tipperary.
It saddens me as I suppose as a Tipperary man. The railways are so poorly served. I think it's due to still got mechanical semaphore signalling and a lot of manual crossings. I'd say people have to be in signal boxes, operating level crossings, and it just adds to. It's hard to operate, hard to get people to work there, I'd say.
Yeah.
So they should be signalled properly.
Absolutely, yeah. Just centralise. It's fine. Like rural lines, particularly if you're struggling to staff and recruit, and it, to be honest, is also the case in the GB network. It's difficult to get staff to want to go and spend the whole time in a signal box. It's basically been the same box keeper for, in many cases quite a few decades. Sometimes you get someone who's keen and they enjoy that life, and that's fine. But for the most part, it's difficult to staff them, and it's difficult. It's not particularly nice quality of life. It can be, I can see the appeal of sitting in a signal box all day, and you might think it's nice, but actually, it's pretty isolating. And if something goes wrong, you're kind of on your own a bit. So particularly if you get ill. So that there are benefits to centralisation there.
But it's funny that leads to full colour light signalling.
Yep.
I don't know what standard it is out of the north of Waterford Station, but also semaphores. A nice mix there.
Yeah.
So I suppose moving on to Northern Ireland, then there's a couple of great activists on Twitter, and first one here is Fund the 9, which I believe stands for Northern Ireland Network Expansion, which is a fairly old project which they've sort of revived. They have a YouTube channel as well if you want to go and check that out.
Yeah.
Good quality stuff. So that's general campaigning for railways across Northern Ireland. Do a good job of it. Next is Circle Line Belfast, which is sort of campaign on its own for a better Belfast suburban network.
Yep.
Mostly using the reopened Knockmore line. That's the key part of it that enables it.
Yeah.
I have ideas on maybe better ways to run possible services, but overall good campaign. Then here we have Into the West, which is they campaign very hard for Enniskillen to be put on the rail review.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I did see them tweeting actually when the review was published.
Railways in the northwest.
Yeah.
And then the Portadown Armagh Railway Society there. Very self-explanatory.
Yes.
The reopening of that line, and then the Down Deserves Rail campaign again for opening rail lines into County Down. So overall, you've got a great range. Maybe you could give them a follow. Great stuff, really.
Yeah, and I suppose the advantage of the strategic review is either it gives something concrete for these campaign groups to rally around in the form of a proposal or a lack of a proposal. So in a way, the strategic review is useful in that it hardens minds either that you get a situation where the line is on the map and the campaign. So for example, Fund the 9 can sort of say, well, here's what you've proposed, and yes, we there are some gaps in it, but you must deliver now what is on this strategic plan. And it gives that campaign, whereas like Into the West have got not very much at all on their plate. and they can continue to go, we don't think this is good enough, and we think there's actually a major gap in the plans here. So yeah, there are advantages in creating strategic plans, even if people don't agree with everything in them, in that you give the opportunity for voices to continue to hold politicians to account in either direction. No, so absolutely, give all these guys, give all these folks your support. Jade, it's such an old episode, the rail tunnel to Ireland episode. It's way back. I can't remember what the number was, but it's a fun one. If you haven't before, it's well worth going back and finding it and giving it a watch. So, I mean, I'm just going to go big face briefly. No, not big face. That's exactly not what I'm going to do, because I've got rid of you. I want Ian. I want you here as well. Ian, we've got loads of kind of thoughts. There's lots of questions coming through about the UK side of the GB side of that tunnel. No, go back to that previous episode. Everyone, stop getting distracted. Will I force the UK to standardise the Corks railway from narrow gauge to standard gauge? Oh, will I force the UK to standardise to Corks railway narrow gauge? Yeah, 2100. That's the plan. So lots of discussion about gauge changing. So kind of reinforcing my point that doesn't need to be a priority, and I don't think there's a huge benefit to doing so anytime soon. That's all the questions. I'm conscious that it's 21:30 and I need to prepare my mind and soul for surviving another couple of hours of podcasting. So I'm going to do that. But Ian, just thank you thank you for this episode and going through those future plans.
Well, thank you for having me on anyway.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. And we will have to have you back to go through it for a page turn through the strategy document. It might be a good time to go through that document when there are some more concrete responses to it. So I don't know how much we've heard from the governments on what they're actually going to do about any of it, and whether there's a deadline they need to.
The timetable chaos. The top people in Irish Rail were hauled into this, that, and the other. Government committee meetings and national television shows to say, like, what's going on? Why did you mess up the timetable? And effectively, well, most of them had the right response. They were saying, like, we don't have the capacity. And I suppose what did come of it is that there was a bit of talk around, well, we need 4 tracks north out of Connolly Station. I don't know that go ahead. Will people forget about it? But that was a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah. No, it's good that so if we start seeing in the fallout from that timetable chaos, if there starts being some more robust statements from the Irish government, say, then that might be a good stepping off point for us to have a flick through and remind ourselves what was proposed, and maybe pick up some of the mistakes. And the good thing about PDF page turns is it's not even Ireland specific, is that we can spot some of the big bloopers that we don't like to see. For example, business case justifications for not doing things. So it'd be good we'll find some time to pick through that at some point next year. I think that'd be good.
They did a nice comparison in the Rail Review to the Borders Railway, saying, don't be too conservative with your planning, because it may not actually be enough.
Absolutely.
They probably have been too conservative with their planning.
They have, yeah, absolutely, yeah, quite. There's an irony there.
But at least recognise the pitfalls.
Well, you know what will have happened is that the first draft will have said that and will have included some proposals in the northwest, and then the second draft, when it went anywhere near the NTA and the UK government, Treasury will have had some view of it, and as soon as Treasury got anywhere near it, they'll have gone hacking at it with the delete key. So no, and I just want to say, not just thanks for tonight's episode, but thank you so much for the previous 2 as well. They're really nice to have a little sub series. I enjoy doing a little series like this for people to pick up these 3 episodes together. They make a nice triplet. I'm really glad for that. So before I say anything more, and before my brain really does leak out of my ear, I'm going to get rid of my face and Ian's and say the usual plugs, which is this podcast available in audio-only format. Last week's is about to go up. I know they're always late at the moment, but I just have extremely limited time and brain capacity. But this one and the previous one will be going up very soon. The usual plugs of patreon.com/Gareth Dennis for Patreon people, all of the new Patreon people, thank you so much for supporting me. It's incredibly kind of you. I need to make sure I get all of your names in the updated credits, which it won't be this episode, but it will be the next episode. But there's so many new Patreon people. Hello to all of you. It's a delight to have you. I will do some more Patreon content. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for merchandise, including the See It Say It Sacked mug, which has been very popular. PayPal.me. Oh, also do send me pictures of that mug. It's very funny that people are sending. I had someone send me one from a Network Rail desk, which is very nice. So yeah, please absolutely do buy that mug if you work in the rail industry, and have that mug placed prominently for all to see. PayPal.me/GarethDennis for loose change and abuse. Thank you so much to those of you who've given me a little donation recently. It does things like pay for childcare. GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord, where the chat continues ad infinitum. There's some good chats going on. There's a thread within the safety space talking about Telerdig. There's a few good things going on there, discussions. There's also a book channel for book updates. Hendygate trundles on, although it's been a bit quiet recently. All good stuff in the Discord channel, in the Discord server. Lots of channels, fun stuff.
I might be hanging around there as well.
It's a fun space. There's a lot that goes on in there. The book's doing. Thanks everyone who's bought the book. If you haven't already. Firstly, that's fine. I'm not going to force you to buy the book, but if you do want to buy it, pre-orders are good because they make the bookshops buy more of them, and we have sold an incredible number of these things already, 600, which doesn't. Okay, you might not think that sounds like much when the bestseller non-fictions are selling tens of thousands of copies, but for a debut author with an indie publisher, this is an extremely good. Pre-sale number. Repeater are very happy about it, which is great. So buy more, because every single extra bit, if we get to 1,000 before publication day, which is in a couple of weeks now, a few weeks, then it will mean that Waterstones will buy loads of them, and then they'll be on bookshelves everywhere, and I will have to tour the country in Waterstones' and other independent bookshops, finding my book and signing random copies in the shelves. So do that. It's great, and I love this thing. I'm very proud of it, and it's going to be pertinent in next week's Rail Natter, which we'll get to in a minute. Ian, I'm plugging your YouTube channel again because it's great. So yes. People should go.
For anyone who hasn't seen it,
yes,
a couple of history videos, a couple of random videos of trains.
Go on there.
And actually, I am on Twitter as well.
Yes,
the X place.
Yeah, no, it's Twitter.
Tried to that last time, but
Wikipedia call it Twitter. I call it Twitter. No, what you can do is go on there, watch all the videos, and then comment under the video saying, "When's the next video coming out?" That's exactly what to do.
I have to get on top of that.
Well, you just have to link people to these ones, right? Anyway, right. So next week is going to be. It's not going to be it's going to be a half news episode and a half that horrible Resolution Foundation report episode. With the nice title of "Are Cars Really the Future of Green Transport?" (brackets no exclamation mark). So yeah, there we go. Can I add a book link into the description? That would make some sense, wouldn't it? It's stupid that I haven't been doing that. Excellent suggestion, Toxic Games. I will do just that. Ella's just updated a new version of the Rail Natter Bingo, which is absolutely hilarious. And Michael C, who is also all the spanners getting in the chat. Michael C has just dropped a link to Ian's YouTube, so you can go in there.
Thank you very much for that.
Oh, there we go. Right. God, we've done it. We've three-parter. There will be there'll be a episode 3.1 or episode 4 of the sub-series where we go through that page turn. But in the meantime, Ian, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much. Yes, this didn't keep tight as everyone. I always have to say it, even though it's not going to happen. Lots of people saying thank you. They've enjoyed the miniseries. I thought it was great, and yeah, we'll no doubt speak again. Ian, take good care of yourself. Everyone in the chat, lovely to see you all. And you can buy my book at all good bookshops and the Evil website. Cheerio, cheerio, cheerio.